Hello friends, welcome to the course of Ethics, Integrity and Aptitude on Awdhesh Academy. Friends, we are learning about ethics. We have learned about meta-ethics. That means from where the ethics come. We have basically learned about the two aspects of it. One is metaphysical issues, another is the psychological issues. Thereafter, we have learned about the normative ethics. Normative ethics basically means the study of the ethical problems, ethical dilemmas. These are the dilemmas which we face in the real life, and it depends upon situation to situation. And now we have to learn the third very important branch of ethics, and that is called the applied ethics. The meaning of the applied ethics is that we will examine the specific controversial questions which are dealing with the matter of ethics. So these are basically the social issues, the larger issues. These are not the individual issues. Individuals may have their own opinion about it, but when we are talking about the applied ethics, it means basically that it is a controversial issue which is actually affecting the societies. This will cover issues like abortion, infanticide, animal rights, environmental concern, homosexuality, capital punishment, nuclear war, all these issues. So what is applied ethics? The first important issue is that all the issues which are dealt in applied ethics are controversial in nature. So we should first ask whether this issue is controversial. Look, there are many issues, for example, murder, theft, rape, for which there is no moral dilemma. There is no conflict. Everybody will say, yes, these are immoral issues. And therefore there is no controversy. Almost everybody will justify giving punishment to somebody who is a murderer, rapist, terrorism and all that. But there are certain issues which are controversial in nature because there are opinions in favor of that, there are opinions against that. And so one of the very important thing is that there should be a controversy on that particular issue. For example, gun licenses is a controversial issue. Whether we should freely give the gun license like America or we should put restriction on the gun licenses like in India, this can be debated. And this is a major issue. But killing the person by the help of gun is basically not an issue which is covered under the applied ethics. The second important requirement to be called something as a applied ethics is that there should be a moral angle involved into that. So we should ask whether it is a moral issue. Now there are many issues which are actually controversial. For example, reservation, affirmative action, public versus private healthcare system, energy conservation. These are the issues which are controversial. People are in favor of it, people are against it. But these are not the moral issues because the basic purpose of these issues is to advancement of a section of society or basically taking care of a society which cannot take care of itself. So these are basically the social issues. These are not the moral issues. Therefore, these things cannot be covered under the umbrella of applied ethics. Now today we have many branches of applied ethics. For example, medical ethics, which will be dealing with issues like abortion, euthanasia and so many issues. Then we have business ethics, whether we should advertise something which is not factually correct, whether it is right to have the human resource issues, whether the company should have the policies of hire and fire, such type of issues will be covered under business ethics. Similarly, we have environmental issues. Then we have sexual ethics, whether people should have the freedom to have extramarital affairs or premarital affairs, all those things. Then there are ethics which are dealing with the human rights. So there are different branches of applied ethics and each branch is a subject in itself. So how do we sort out the issues which are covered under applied ethics? We have some broad principles. We can say these are the normative principles of applied ethics. So let me discuss 10 such principles. The first is called personal benefit. Ultimately, we have to acknowledge that everybody does the things which are in his own benefit, in his own good. And therefore, we have to see that we should not derive a principle which will not help the person to achieve his own potential. So the personal benefit is very, very important and we have to respect the individualism of the people. The second issue is social benefit. There is no possibility of having unlimited personal freedom. We have to see that what brings the benefit to the society. So social benefits has to balance the personal benefit. So the second important thing is that whatever action is done, it should be in the interest of the society. The third normative principle is the principle of benevolence. Benevolence means we should take an action which actually help the people who are in need. So this is also very important principle which will decide whether the action is right or wrong ethically. Then there is a principle of paternalism. Now what is the meaning of paternalism? You as a parent, father, take care of the children because the child is not capable of taking care of itself. In the same way, in our society, there are many people who are not able to take care of themselves, and it is the responsibility of the people who are powerful to take care of them. And that is why this principle, we can call it the principle of paternalism. The fifth important principle is the principle of harm. That means we should not do anything which actually harm a person. The sixth important principle is the principle of honesty. If you are considering different aspects of the ethical principle, it should be honest. It should not be for the deceiving of somebody else. It should not be based on untruth, lies. So this also we have to understand while deciding the issues of applied ethics. The seventh important thing is the principle of lawfulness. That means whatever action we should take, that should be in accordance with the law. So if the law prohibits abortion, then the debate ends. The debate is there only when the law is not clear or the law gives some scope. That means we should comply with the law and we should not go outside the purview of the law. We should not take the law into our own hand. The eighth important principle is the principle of autonomy, where we acknowledge the person's freedom over his own action or over his own body. That means if somebody wants to do something, we should allow that person to do unless that is prohibited in the law. The ninth important principle is the principle of justice, that we have to acknowledge that every person has a right to be dealt in a fair and just manner. He should be given an opportunity to represent himself, to put forth his case. He should have the benefit of the process of law, and he should have the fair distribution of the benefit which is given by the society. So this is a very, very important principle, and the 10th important principle is to accept that every human has rights. That means we have to acknowledge that the person has the right to life, the person has right to information, the person has right to privacy, free expression and safety. So we have to see that when we are deciding the issues of applied ethics, all the 10 normative principles should be taken into consideration as far as possible. So whichever is the relevant principle we have to use, and then we have to balance the different principles to arrive at the right conclusion. So today we have learned about the applied ethics, which is a very important branch of ethics. We have learned about the normative principles of applied ethics. Friends, we have learned in the last lesson about applied ethics. We have learned that in order to become something falling under the category of applied ethics, it should be controversial and it should have a moral angle. We have also learned about the 10 normative principles which are used in the applied ethics to resolve some sort of ethical dilemma at the social level. Now let us learn about some of the applications of applied ethics. One of the most important issue of applied ethics deals with abortion. Whether abortion is a moral thing, ethical thing or not. All over the world, people are debating whether the woman or the mother has the right of abortion or not. Can we kill the child in the fetus itself? Do we have the right to take human life? This is a very, very controversial issue. Now, some people think that abortion is right because it is the mother's prerogative whether she wants to bring the child into this world or not. Some people think that it is wrong because nobody has the right to take any life. Some people think that maybe in certain situation abortion may be justified. So let's understand the ethical angle of that. Now, let's first see how it is said to be absolutely wrong. Some people believe that abortion is absolutely wrong. Why? Because they say that all the action that kills a human being is morally wrong. The second step is that all abortions are actions that kill a human being, and therefore they conclude that all abortions are morally wrong. But this is not a right analogy or right principle, because we cannot say that under every situation killing of human being is ethically wrong. For example, a murderer, the government itself hang him, terrorist, a child rapist, a drug addict or drug trafficker. In many situations, even the government accept and people accept at large that taking the life of a human being is not wrong if it is in the larger interest of the society. It is only when we kill some innocent person, then only it is wrong. Sometimes abortion may be necessary to save the life of the mother. Now in that situation, can we justify? Instead of being more rigid about it, let us now understand and argue this principle in a more liberal manner. So we can say most abortions are wrong because all actions that kill an innocent person without resulting in saving the life of another person or something of a similar moral importance are morally wrong. That means if you are taking a life of somebody which actually results in saving another life, then it may not be wrong. Or if you are taking the life of somebody which is in the overall benefit of the society, or it is of the better moral standard or a moral importance, then also it may not be wrong. Second is that most abortions are actions that kill an innocent person without resulting in saving of life of another person or something of similar moral importance, and that is why most abortions are wrong. So if we go by this moral reasoning, we can say that most abortions are morally wrong, but not all abortions are morally wrong. That means if the abortion is leading to the saving of life of another person, or if it is of higher moral importance, then we can justify the abortion in those situations. Now naturally abortion is not something which is black and white, or you can say it is always right or always wrong. There are many reasons which are in support of abortion as well. For example, it is argued that it is the right of the mother to give birth to the child. She is creating the child in her own blood, and therefore you cannot take away that right from her. The second issue is, for example, dowry. Now somebody who feels that if a girl child takes place and I have to give a lot of dowry and I can't afford to give that dowry, and therefore he justifies that I don't want a girl child, and so female infanticide become a common thing. That may be one of the justification. Sometimes it can be risk of life to the mother. Suppose the situation is such that either the mother or the child would survive, or if the child is allowed to grow inside the mother, then it may actually take the life of the mother, or it may be harmful to the mother. In that situation also perhaps it can be justified. Sometimes there is a rape and the girl become pregnant. Now in that situation, whether she is forced to carry the child, she cannot go for abortion. This is also something which is not really very black and white, and maybe you cannot punish the girl to carry a child which is in the consequence of rape. In the same way, if the child is deformed, not mentally or physically fit to live in the world, having a lot of deformity, then also people argue that it is better to abort rather than bring the child into this world and let him face so many evil consequences or difficulties in life. So there are arguments in favor, there are arguments against it. Now if we have to conclude that using all the principles, we can say that, for example, female infanticide cannot be permitted because of a social evil called dowry. Now we cannot justify the killing of the female for the personal interest of the parents, because it is absolutely wrong to follow a practice just because of a social evil. It cannot be justified. Then mothers can't have absolute right to take her children's life, even though it is a fact that every mother brings the child into this world, but you cannot give that right to the parents that if they are not happy with the child, they can take the life of the child. Even before the child is actually born, life is already there, and therefore mother cannot have absolute right. But yes, in certain situations it can be justified. So this also concludes that abortion may be justified if the child growth is going to harm or endanger the life of the mother, or if there is a rape case, or if there is a serious deformity in the child. So under these situations it may be justified. So finally let us understand that abortion can be justified not unconditionally, but if it saves somebody's life or if it leads to a higher moral value results, then perhaps it can be justified. Now we will discuss another very controversial ethical issue which one point of time grabbed the attention of the world. This is called the case study of baby doe. What is that? In 1982, a couple from Bloomington, Indiana gave birth to a baby which has several mental and physical disabilities. Among other complications, the infant, whose name was baby doe, had its stomach disconnected from the throat and was thus unable to receive nourishment. Although this stomach deformity was correctable through surgery, the couple did not want to raise the severely disabled child and therefore chose to deny surgery, food and water to the infant. Local courts supported the parents' decision. 6 days later, baby doe died. Now, the issue is, should the corrective surgery have been performed for baby doe? Now, this is an issue which actually grabbed the attention of the entire world during that period of time. So let's try to understand and analyze this controversial issue of applied ethics. First, let's see what are the arguments in favor of the corrective surgery. The favorable arguments are that infant has a right to live. Every child has a right to live. And you cannot take the life because the child is not capable of expressing its own right. Then the principle of paternalism is also applicable in this case, which stipulates that we should pursue the best interest of others when they are incapable of doing so themselves. And in this case we have seen that the parents themselves have decided to end the life of the child. So it violates that principle of paternalism, and therefore it is not an ethical action. But there are arguments against the corrective surgery. What are the arguments? Because if the baby doe would have survived, the quality of life would have been very poor for the baby, and in any case the baby would not have survived for a long time and died at an early age. So if you give birth to a child who is not likely to lead a good life, decent life, and throughout the life going to suffer, then perhaps it would be better that the child is not born at all. This is the argument which is against the corrective surgery. Other thing is that baby doe's survival would have been a significant emotional and financial burden for the parents. Imagine that the parents have to take care of a deformative child or a mentally ill child throughout the life. What type of torture it would be for the parents, and the parents have the right to live their life in a comfortable manner. So it was against the principle of personal benefit. After hearing both the sides, the courts concluded that the argument against the surgery was stronger than the arguments in favor of the surgery. The reasons are as following. The first reason was that surgery was not in the best interest of the infant. Because of the poor quality of life the infant was likely to lead, and therefore surgery was not desirable. The second is that baby doe's right to life was also not clear because of the severity of the mental impairment of the child. Then it was also concluded that the child actually does not have the sound mental faculty, and therefore the child cannot decide whether it is good for him to live or not. And in many situations we as a human being want to die when we cannot live a proper life, and therefore since the child does not have a mental appropriateness, and therefore you cannot say that by not going for the surgery you have taken away the right of the child. And therefore the courts concluded that it was better that the surgery was not done. However, you can understand that this is a subjective opinion of the judge. If you give this question to 10 different people, perhaps they will reach to 10 different conclusions, and therefore this is not the final outcome and this is not the universal outcome. However, this matter was resolved in this particular manner as it existed in this particular case. So today we have learned about two different issues relating to applied ethics, and we have learned how to use the normative principles of applied ethics into the real practice, and you can practice many more problems in this and resolve the dilemmas of life. Thank you very much. Friends, today we are going to learn about environmental ethics. We know that environment today is getting polluted and it is creating a lot of difficulties and complications in the survival of human beings and also other different creatures. So what are the different issues which are connected with the environmental ethics? What we can do to improve the environment? All those things we are going to discuss today. So let's start with the topic of environmental ethics. Now, first of all, let us understand what is environmental ethics. Environmental ethics is the discipline in philosophy that studies the moral relationship of human beings to the environment and its non-human contents. That means what this defines is that what type of relationship we human beings should have, number one with the environment and number two with the non-human contents, that basically includes the animals, the birds, the plants, all those things. So that basically is the concern of environmental ethics. Now, environmental ethics exerts influence on a large number of disciplines, for example, law, sociology, theology, economics, ecology, and geography. So it includes large number of disciplines because environment affects almost everything on this planet. All living beings, including plants and animals, are part of environment, and all of them has right to coexist with human beings. So what human beings are doing is that they are expanding their domain, and in that way they are reducing the area of survival for the other animals and also for plants. So let's understand what are the different topics which are covered under the environmental ethics. Under the environmental ethics, we learn about global warming, pollution and development, sustainable development, economic development and social justice, international relations, and global governance. So these are the different topics which are covered under the environmental ethics. Now we are going to discuss the issues in detail which are pertaining to environmental ethics. These can be divided into 4 categories: consumption of natural resources, destruction of forest and rehabilitation, environmental pollution, and harm to animals. So these are the 4 categories under which we are going to discuss environmental ethics. Let's start with the first one, that is consumption of natural resources. Friends, one of the major reasons for the rapid development of the human society in the last couple of centuries is due to excessive exploitation of the natural resources. We had been exploiting the natural resources without caring for its impact on the environment. So unscrupulous depletion of our natural resources is very much detrimental to our well-being, because these natural resources are not infinite, and once they reduces, we will not have enough resources in future. For example, oil, coal, and all these resources, if they vanish from earth, they are exhausted. Tomorrow we will not be having the benefit of that. Excessive use of our available resources is to risk the life of our future generation. So we may be living a good life today, but what is going to happen to our future generation? So there is a very Native American proverb: we don't inherit the earth from our ancestors, we borrow it from our children. So if we exploit all the resources today, we are not going to leave anything for our children. And that's going to be very unfortunate, because our children will not be able to live in a good environment. They will not have natural resources available to them. And therefore, we have to consume lesser resources so that enough is available to our future generations as well. The second important aspect is destruction of forest and the rehabilitation issues. We know that due to the expansion of human civilization, human society, and due to the large-scale industrial activities which are there in our country and all over the world, this has led to the destruction of forest and other natural resources. Forest area is continuously decreasing. In the same way, the mining processes disrupt the ecological balance of nature and harm the plant and animal life in those regions. So whenever mining is done, it creates a lot of pollution, and whatever plants are there, they get destroyed, and the nature is also very badly affected. The land which is used for agriculture is unable to compensate the loss of trees and the animal life. We are now expanding the land more and more for agriculture purpose. Please understand that the forest provide so much of oxygen, so much of greenery. When we have those lands available only for agriculture purpose, that cannot compensate the loss of the plants and the loss of animal life. In the same way, the construction of dams, roads, or factories displaces a large number of local inhabitants, and these displaced people find it difficult to get an alternative place and means of livelihood. So they suffer immensely because they have to be displaced. And therefore, it is required that the proper rehabilitation policies must be made for the rehabilitation. So friends, this is the second very important issue. And now let's understand what are the different components of a good rehabilitation policy. Fair compensation for their lands and property. The people's lands are taken, their compensation has to be given fairly. Site plots or built houses at nearby places which should be commensurate with their land mass. So if you are taking more land mass, we should give them more area and more land in the nearby places. We should also provide them means to develop their own traditional art and culture. We should try to provide jobs for at least one adult member of each family in the industries which are developed in the area which belonged to them earlier. The resettlement of such displaced people should be in the neighborhood or in the similar environment so that their life is minimum affected. Education and skill development should be done for the local people so that they can get jobs in the industries and businesses which are going to come in future. There should be awareness about the benefit of the project so that the people contribute and support the project for their own advantage rather than fighting about it. So friends, these are some of the very important elements of the rehabilitation policy which we can do when we are going to acquire the lands of the people and we are going to displace them from their own home. The third important aspect of environmental ethics is environmental pollution. We know that a large part of the country is suffering from tremendous pollution due to several reasons. Now, why this pollution is taking place? Let's understand this particular dimension. We know that the population is increasing tremendously in last couple of decades, and now it is so big that our planet is finding it difficult to carry and support that population. Then the large-scale constructions of roads and building has also damaged the environment. Then we are having increasing use of automobile, then burning of crops nowadays, particularly in the northern India, and the use of coal to generate electricity is mainly responsible for the polluted environment. And some of these activities are there around the year. For example, use of the automobile and the burning of coal. And so this is constantly a source of environmental pollution. Now, environmental pollution basically affects the health of the people and leads to many types of respiratory diseases, and it causes many deaths every year. So it is greatly injurious to the well-being of the human society. And therefore, we can understand that such type of strategy, such type of living style is not suitable, it's not sustainable. If the automobiles keep on increasing with the present pace, tomorrow what is going to happen is that the pollution levels will reach to a very high level. It's going to cause tremendous impact on the human life. So we should try to achieve this sustainable development. It should not be hazard development. So what are the strategies for sustainable development? Let us understand that. Develop appropriate waste management policy by employing more people for the collection of garbage from different places and segregating them appropriately. So waste management policy is very important for keeping the environment clean. We have to create social awareness for cleaning the garbage and taking care of the environment, and the benefit of the same for people's health and the happiness through the media campaign. So we should launch media campaign where we make the people aware about the cleaning of the garbage so that it can benefit large number of people. We can use part of the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan tax for funding the environment NGOs and enable them to act as the citizens' representative and watchdog. So this is also an important thing, that we should use part of the Swachh Bharat tax to clean the environment. So we should prescribe the strict emission norms for vehicle and other polluting industries. Today, the environment is damaged by the industries and the vehicles, and people are doing it without any problem. A lot of dumping of the polluted material is taking place by the industries, and we should make strict laws and implement them. And stricter penalties should be imposed for the violation of the environmental norm. So anybody who violates the environment, then strict penalty must be imposed on them. We should also make the process of complaint simpler and easy, and the people who give these complaints must be given rewards. Now, for this purpose, we can develop an app where people can just take the photographs and upload it, and that way the government knows as to who are polluting and against whom action should be taken. We should create detailed environment database and make them accessible to all the citizens so that citizens can know as to how the environment is damaged by the different sector of people. The Pollution Control Board should be adequately funded, staffed and empowered. This is also one of the very important priority. It should be one of the very important priority. Indian universities must include the environmental studies in all courses to sensitize the future citizens of India about their role and responsibility toward the environment. So one small course must be introduced for all the graduates so that people are aware as to what are their responsibilities about environment, what they can do about the environment, and that way we can create a future generation which takes care of the environment. Then we can also propose that higher rate of GST can be imposed on the vehicle, which increases the pollution. Now, the fourth important aspect of the environmental ethics is harm to animals. This is also very, very important aspect we are neglecting right now. When human inhabitations grows, then the animals lose their homes. Like when we cut the forest, all the animals who used to live there, their homes are lost. Then the animals and plants habitats are constantly destroyed to make space for human habitation. Now in that situation, what happens, that animal enter human settlement, and that poses a threat to the people. Many animals are also killed on daily basis for the food requirement of the human beings. In the same way, many studies are done where a lot of animals are harmed. So animal studies also cause harm to animals and sometimes even leads to their death. Because of our indifferent attitude to the animals and because of constant killing of the animals, many species have already extinct. They are no more available. And therefore, we must try to minimize the harm to animals. So friends, saving the life of the animal, taking care of the animal, seeing that they are not harmed, that is also part of the environmental ethics, because they also have the same right to live on this planet as we have. So friends, today we have learned about the different aspects of environmental ethics. I hope that you understood the topic. Thank you very much.